Four major zones in the development of the northern metropolis. A total of 172 candidates in the upcoming district council election, none of them from the pro-democracy camp. And Israel reportedly orders the evacuation of Al-Quds hospital in Gaza. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Development of the northern metropolis was among the highlights of the policy address delivered last week. Under the latest plan, the area would be divided into four major zones covering 3,000 hectares of land. More than half of the land is expected to generate 500,000 apartments in 10 years. Jackie Lin reports.
Under the latest plans, the government will divide the northern metropolis into four major zones instead of a three-circle framework outlined by the previous administration. The target remains transforming the metropolis into an international innovation hub. Areas such as Yunlong and Tinshui Wai will develop high-end professional services owing to their proximity to Shenzhen, Qianhai, and Nanshan. 2 million square meters of commercial land has been earmarked around Hongshui Q for financial, insurance, and legal arbitration services with a connecting rail line. Laofaoshan will focus on developing its digital technology services and ecotourism. Yunlong South will mainly be a residential zone offering some 30,000 flats. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park around Lok Ma Chau Loop and Ngau Tan Mei will have 7 million square meters of gross floor area dedicated to innovation technology. The area amounts to the size of 17 science parks. Santin Technopole will see its first batch of land leveled for use in 2026, involving parts of the area's wetland.
If we are determined to develop Hong Kong into an innovation and technology hub, we need scale. We also wanted to co-locate or cooperate with the technology park across the Shenzhen River. So we want the cluster to be in that area. Inevitably, we have to make the choice of going into some of the wetland.
Meanwhile, Sheng Shui, Fanling North, and Kutung North will be the port trade and industrial zone with government offices. Shatao Kok and Robin's Nest will be the cultural and ecotourism zone. The new development plans will be submitted before next year. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The nomination period for the 2023 District Council ordinary election ended today. 172 candidates will be competing for 88 seats in the direct elections in geographical constituencies. Two-thirds of the candidates are affiliated with political parties. Timothy Lee reports.
The overhauled District Council election is scheduled to be held in December. Under the new system, the number of directly elected council seats has decreased, while there will be appointed members. The city's 18 districts have been divided into 44 district council geographical constituencies, offering 88 seats under a double-seat single-vote system. More than 2 people are contesting for every constituency. The most competitive ones being Yaotsing South and Taipo North, with 6 contestants vying for seats in each of the 2 areas. This as Central, Western, Wan Chai, and Taipo South all featured 5 candidates. Around 2/3 of them are affiliated with political parties. The majority of them come from 4 parties, with 44 being members of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, 25 from the Hong Kong Federation of Trade Unions, 10 from the Business and Professionals Alliance for Hong Kong, as well as 17 from the New People's Party. Meanwhile, Path of Democracy, led by Ronnie Tong, and Roundtable, led by Michael Tian, each successfully fielded 1 candidate. Many contestants this year served as district councillors previously or are community officers of their relevant parties. Those who are unaffiliated with any party or are newcomers number around 40. Candidates can only secure a place in the elections by receiving at least 3 nominations from members of each of the following 3 committees: Fight Crime, Fire Safety, and Area Committees. No one from the pro-democracy camp has submitted a nomination form. The same for Third Side, led by Tik Chi Yoon, which failed to secure enough support from the committees. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Overseas, Lebanon's Iran-backed Hezbollah said it had shot down an Israeli drone using surface-to-air missile, seen as a warning that the group possesses such weapons. This as Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian said in a CNN interview that Tehran does not want the Israel-Hamas conflict to spread. Meanwhile, officials said the Palestinian death toll as of Sunday was more than 8,000, including over 3,300 miners, 116 medics, and 35 journalists. Israel is determined to wipe out Gaza rulers Hamas after its attacks on Israeli soil on October 7th killed a reported 1,400 people. Nazvi Karim has more.
A desperate scramble for a desperate people. After 3 weeks of living on scraps, the frustrations of many Gaza residents boiled over. On Sunday, thousands in the southern city of Khan Yunis entered warehouses and distributing centers belonging to UNRWA, the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency. They grabbed flour, food, and other basic survival items.
This is an indication that people in Gaza have reached a breaking point. The levels of desperation, their frustration, their fear, their concern, they have been living under tight siege for more than 3 weeks. They are grieving themselves, and people are hitting rock bottom.
This, as the largest convoy of aid since October 7th, arrived in Gaza via the Rafah border crossing from Egypt. 33 trucks providing food, water, and medical supplies, but not fuel. The White House said US President Joe Biden spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and pressed him to immediately and significantly increase the flow of aid. Israel continues to bomb Gaza with staff, patients, and thousands sheltering Al-Shifa and Al-Quds hospitals in the north, told to evacuate.
We don't have the means to evacuate Al-Quds hospital. We have over 400 patients who are inside the hospital. Many of them are in the intensive care unit. Evacuating them means killing them.
The White House said it has asked Israel hard questions about civilian casualties amid an international outcry for a humanitarian ceasefire. Hamas has asked for a 5-day pause in fighting to allow in aid. The Israeli military, meanwhile, released footage of its tanks entering Gaza and armored bulldozers deep inside the enclave as part of a so-called Phase 2 of operations. Reports emerge of fierce fighting, with Hamas claiming on social media that they have destroyed a number of Israeli tanks. 2 Palestinians were killed in the occupied West Bank after Israel carried out an operation at the Jenin refugee camp. Biden has reportedly urged Israel to stop illegal settlers from attacking Palestinians in the area. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In Egypt, the top prosecutor for the International Criminal Court said the hindering of relief supplies to Gaza may be a crime. Karim Khan called on Hamas to release all Israeli and foreign hostages, while also warning Israel to make sure Gaza receives adequate aid supplies. Aid supplies to Gaza have been minimal since Israel began bombarding the densely populated enclave on October 7th. Although Israeli officials have allowed aid trucks into Gaza, United Nations officials have said supplies are limited and do not correspond to the huge need on the ground.
And I want to underline clearly to Israel that there must be discernible efforts without further delay to make sure civilians receive basic food, medicine, anesthetics, morphine. We hear reports of operations taking place without these basic medicines, as if we're in the Middle Ages. And it's alarming to see the bodies of young children that could be our own children being dragged, baked in dust, still silent, motionless because they're dead.
Meantime, an airport in the mostly Muslim Russian Republic of Dagestan was closed on Sunday after Palestinian supporters poured onto the runway to protest the arrival of a plane carrying Israelis. Authorities said all aircraft bound for Makhachkala were diverted to other airports. Media reports from the area said demonstrators denounced Israeli actions in Gaza. Some 20 people were reportedly injured. Large groups of protesters were seen entering the air terminal and then storming various rooms inside. Israel urged Russian authorities to protect Israelis and Jews. Regional leaders in Dagestan called for calm. A similar appeal was issued by Dagestan's chief Islamic scholar. In other news, at least 14 people have died in a train crash in the southeastern India state of Andhra Pradesh. As the first pictures emerged, people were seen scrambling to safety and responders searching for survivors in mangled wreckage. 2 passenger trains collided. One had been stationary on the track. Human error in signaling is initially being blamed for the crash. As the sun came up, the scale of the tragedy became evident. 50 were injured, and emergency crews were continuing to look through debris. Carriages were strewn across a wide area, some on top of others. It is another rail disaster in India. More than 280 people died 4 months ago when 2 passenger services rammed into each other in eastern India. Still ahead, a gunfight after a Halloween parade in Florida leaves 2 dead. G7 calls for the immediate repeal of import curbs on Japanese food products after release of wastewater from the Fukushima power plant. And a special series on business opportunities in Indonesia's development plans. Welcome back to TVB News. Police in Florida in the U.S. have charged 1 man with 2 murders and are appealing for more information after a gunfight broke out in the wake of a Halloween parade. 2 people are dead. 1 was 14 years old, the other 22. The local police chief described it as completely unacceptable. David Garrett reports.
3 a.m. at a night spot in Tampa. After celebrating Halloween, things turned truly frightening for these revelers. Young people run away as gunshots are heard. Others duck for cover behind bar tables and talk to each other for comfort. Earlier, there had been joyous scenes on the streets of the historic Tampa neighborhood of Ybor City. Now youngsters were screaming for help. Police say a gun battle broke out between 2 groups and innocents were caught in the crossfire. 2 were killed, nearly 20, ranging from ages 18 to 27, suffered gunshot wounds.
What we know at this point is it was a disturbance or a fight between 2 groups. And in this fight between 2 groups, we had hundreds of innocent people involved that were in the way. And unfortunately, as a result of that, we've had 2 that have passed away and 18 in the hospital with injuries.
Investigators are trying to determine what triggered the shooting. They have asked those who were filming at the time to hand video over. Police believe at least 2 shooters were involved. 22-year-old Terrell Stephen Phillips was charged with 2 counts of murder. This shooting in Tampa comes days after the deadliest in the US in 2023. 18 were killed in Maine last week, 7 at this bowling alley and the others at a restaurant, all shot dead by an Army reservist. Vigils were held for those victims on Sunday as the town of Lewiston mourns and faces up to gun violence. Residents lit candles and spoke of those lost.
My best friend's son was killed, and there's another friend of ours that's in the hospital fighting for his life.
Mass shootings have become an almost daily occurrence in America. Other parts of Florida celebrated Halloween in style, unaware of shootings elsewhere. This was a similar parade to the one that would turn deadly in Ybor City. Tampa's mayor described the events there as yet another shooting and told people, we have to say, enough. David Garrett, TVB News.
The Group of 7 Industrial Powers, or G7, called on Sunday for the immediate repeal of import curbs on Japanese food products. This with reference to China's restrictions after Japan began releasing wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The G7 trade ministers, in a statement after a weekend meeting in Osaka, did not mention China, but they also denounced what they consider Beijing's rising economic coercion through trade. In response, China described G7's move as, quote, economic coercion, and urged the group not to stubbornly adhere to double standards, but take practical action to maintain the normal international trade and investment order. Meanwhile, the United States has, for the first time, begun buying Japanese seafood to supply its military there. The first purchase involves just shy of a metric ton of scallops. This will be expanded over time to all types of seafood. Indonesia is the biggest ASEAN member state and the world's fourth largest country by population, providing China, including the Hong Kong SAR, with enormous potential for cooperation in many aspects. Earlier this month, the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway, built as part of the Belt and Road Initiative, came into operation. In a special series, a TVB news crew takes a look at Indonesia's transport infrastructure, trade and livelihood issues, and opportunities for Hong Kong in such areas. In part one of the series, Jackie Lin tries out Southeast Asia's first high-speed railway.
Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the most congested cities in the world. Thousands are troubled by scenes like this every day. Now a high-speed railway has been built to save time for travelers between Jakarta and the country's fourth largest city, Bandung. It's constructed under the Belt and Road Initiative, a China-led global infrastructure development program spanning more than 150 countries, encompassing areas of transport, energy, health, and aerospace. The 142.3-kilometer rail line officially began its commercial operation in mid-October after 7 years of construction. According to Indonesia's transport authorities, some 40 million cars commuted between Jakarta and Bandung every year before the pandemic. Another 4 million people traveled by intercity trains between the two places annually. The commute used to take at least 3 hours. With this high-speed rail, that is cut to 45 minutes. Travelers can buy tickets at these self-service kiosks, which come in 3 languages: Bahasa Indonesia, English, and Chinese. Real name registration is required, just like the Chinese high-speed rail system. Payments can be made with local e-commerce apps or credit cards, but we were met with a bit of hiccup. None of our Hong Kong credit cards worked. Eventually, we paid by cash at the counters. Indonesia's rail authorities began its 1-month public free trial back in September. Now the commercial operation has just begun. We've got the tickets and we're ready to go. Passengers had to go through security checks. Tickets can be presented in the form of a QR code or a physical ticket. Yep. The high-speed rail consists of 8 carriages with a total length of around 209 meters. This high-speed train called Wush can carry 601 passengers. That means it has 25 more seats than the same model of train in China.
I have experience to take a ride fast train in Japan, but I think this is different experience because it's Indonesia, and I feel so proud of Indonesia. And we have a fast train now, and I feel so proud of this train and Indonesia.
The trains were modified for the archipelago's tropical climate and landscape, with a top speed of 350 kilometers per hour, making it the fastest train in Southeast Asia.
When they see the current speed 350, so they applause for them like that, and then they took the photo together with their college because we're proud of that.
Staff uniforms, as well as train seats, are adorned with Indonesia's signature batik design.
The people not really see this is a Chinese thing again, but this is a really good project for Indonesia and for the growing of the nation.
Indonesian authorities earlier revealed that they are studying the possibility of extending the high-speed rail line between Jakarta and Bandung eventually to Surabaya. If that plan materializes, the high-speed rail network would connect Jakarta and Eastern Java in less than 5 hours. Jackie Lin, TVB News, Bandung, Indonesia.
Back locally, 4 students of the University of Hong Kong have each been slapped with a 2-year jail term. Earlier, they pleaded guilty to incitement to wound with intent. The defendants, aged between 20 and 22, were taken to the district court in a correctional services department vehicle today. as leading members of the Hong Kong University Students' Union and the HKUSU Council, they passed a motion in 2021 to mourn a man who stabbed a police officer before committing suicide. In sentencing, Judge Adriana Noel Tse Ching said there are multiple aggravating factors towards the charges. The judge said the motion they raised were beyond the functions of the HKUSU Council, and the decision to use the council as a channel for incitement was an abuse of power. U.S. Senator Jeff Wilson was charged with possession of arms without a license after bringing a handgun into the city's airport. But prosecutors dropped the charge and Wilson was bound over for 24 months, and he agreed to a good behavior order. His gun was confiscated. The 63-year-old Washington state senator was seen leaving the West Kowloon Magistracy earlier. Jeff Wilson flew to the city from San Francisco on the 21st of this month. On arrival, he reported to customs officers that he was in possession of an unloaded handgun. He said he did not mean to bring the weapon with him and that it was a mistake. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.